What's going on, everybody? This is Lady Luck here again. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yes, I am cranking out the content on Candace Owens because it just must be discussed. Okay. Candace is trolling all of humanity at this point. I don't care if you are for Israel or against Israel. This is simply a matter of Candace Owens being completely disingenuous to Erika Kirk and to Turning Point USA, not even allowing them any chance to grieve or mourn or anything. Erika Kirk lost her husband in a horrible way, to which the entire world saw. And if you didn't see it for yourself, you can see a video of it. And what does Candace do? She sends out a challenge to Turning Point USA, showing that she never really was a close friend to her, and then speaks about possibly, reuniting or some sort of reunion with Charlie Kirk on a stage. It's like that level of bitterness that she has of what could have been is overshadowing her so-called friendship or kinship or relationship she has with Erika Kirk. I highly doubt she talks to this woman. And she certainly has not shown any evidence that she does talk to her or that she has any type of friendship with her. And how do you have someone you love and you call a brother that you were so close and near and dear to get married, and then you don't even halfway acknowledge or recognize his own wife? Like, this is getting to a point where, Erika Kirk doesn't have to explain anything to Candace. She doesn't owe her any responses. She doesn't owe her any answers. She don't owe her anything. And I think the fact that she has not said anything and has kind of remained silent on this, it seems like it's driving Candace Owens crazy, because it's like she wants her to say something, but hopefully she doesn't engage. Now, it gets down to a point where she has to respond. She needs to have some sort of spokesperson or an attorney respond on her behalf. That way they know what Candace will know. They're not playing. This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is someone's, life and livelihood on the line. And this woman has, lost her spouse. Don't care what you think about what her motives may have been. It doesn't matter. They were married and she gave him 2 kids. And who are we to challenge whether or not Erika Kirk loved her husband? You got all kinds of dumb conspiracy theories already flying off the handle. So she's already got to deal with that. Why in the world should she have to feel like she needs to respond to Candace Owens, of all people, who's supposed to have been a very close friend and sister of some sort to Charlie Kirk? It's just added nonsense that she doesn't really need at this point in her life. And none of Candace's 5 million supporters or subscribers or whatever are trying to reel it in with her and to say, can you just calm down on that? Because you do realize Erika Kirk is the CEO of Turning Point. So you make statements about the executives, you send out a challenge. Do you not realize that that is also targeting Erika Kirk? How do you say the executives and somehow remove Erika Kirk out the equation when she's the CEO? She is the chief executive officer. So I know I'm not alone in this, because what I'm saying is very logical. Candace is the only one that's being disingenuous and delusional. And when you have Nick Fuentes coming out calling her delusional and able to state the obvious, despite whatever he says about Erika Kirk, right? But when he's sitting here saying, Candace just sounds like she's crazy, like she needs to be, admitted somewhere against her will, then there's something wrong. You have other, people who come, who are calling themselves conservatives as well, that are coming out and speaking against what she's doing, because it's not just, buffoonery, but it's also hurtful to someone like Erika Kirk. And it's just the last thing she needs right now in her life. So we have Cherie Denise. This is a fantastic content creator. Actually, a couple of my supporters, shout out to Candia, recommended Cherie my way. And I have featured a couple of her videos in the lineup regarding Candace Owens. And that includes a clip of Cherie Denise's take and her, feedback and commentary in the compilation video that will be tagged at the end of this video. You guys need to check that out. I mean, I have at least 5 or 6 other content creators, including myself, pretty much saying the same thing, no matter what side you're on and all this. Y'all know I don't care about Democrats versus Republicans versus left or right. None of that stuff gets you into heaven. So I don't care about it. I'm made for America. And what I see right now is Candace, hitting someone that is mourning and grieving the loss of her husband with these senseless attacks about her husband at the wrong time. And she's not even proving it with evidence. So, I mean, is there really a right time to tell a lie? Because until she proves otherwise, she's just lying and she's trolling. And this is not what someone who's grieving the loss of their husband needs. And she doesn't care. That's the worst part about it. Candace Owens doesn't care what she's doing. So let's get to this. Shout out to Cherie. Make sure you guys check out her YouTube channel below. It is Cherie Denise here. I subscribed. And I'm, very grateful and appreciative to see that even, my supporters are able to go out and watch whomever they want to watch, and they'll recommend other content creators my way. And, to see Cherie, speak so plain and simple and even apologize to her supporters about her, blind loyalty on Candace Owens. If Candace Owens can submit documentation and proof, that's one thing. But when she can't do that or she refuses to do it, it's a problem. And this is why Candace is facing a lawsuit. And, the Macrons amended their lawsuit as well, because she just refuses to stop calling this woman a man and lying about her being born a man. It's so ridiculous. So let's get to this. Make sure you guys check out her content and give her a thumbs up and tell her Lady Luck Club sent you. Also, if Cherie Denise is able to contact me, I would love to do an interview with her. I love the humility in this and how she, being a hardcore, Candace supporter, was even able to say, listen, I'm sorry for misleading you guys, here on my platform and just following every word she said. It was wrong. I should do my fact checking, which I encourage everyone to do. And it shows that there is some out here who do appreciate the art of integrity and being responsible with their voice and their platform. So let's get to it.
Latest push towards who did it is TPUSA, even though she will also tell you that 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, he had officially turned his back on the Jews. And then secondly, he was promising that he was going to bring Candace Owens back. And then I guess after that proclamation, the group just rose up in great organized indignation and shot their leader. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense.
Oh my God, yeah, I know.
Of course, the conspiracies abound about the Kirk assassination. It's really a pity that we can't just let people get on with the investigation so that we can, figure out what happens. I think this is my problem here. I understand that all the internet sleuths are like, they need to know that we are on it so that they can't just throw us a bunch of trash when it actually comes to the trial. Like, don't bring us a bunch of bad evidence to the trial because we weren't on it this whole time. Like, you guys need to feel the pressure because we're looking and analyzing and all this stuff. And so I feel like that's why people are not able to be hands off in this scenario in a way that I think would be helpful. Because right now they're just really muddying the waters. There's all these conspiracy theorists that are just muddying the waters and just coming up with wild allegations, saying wild things. It's gotten to the point now where it's like, at the very beginning of this, I was very invested in what happened. What aren't we being told? I didn't like the letters and the notes that had gone on between the killer and the lover. I thought that was very fraudulent sounding. So at first I was invested in what people were saying. And then I started to get gross vibes because it felt like people were demanding information, that were coming up with things that weren't true. And I found enough inconsistencies. I made a video about that. Found enough inconsistencies that were being repeated over and over and over and just whipping people up into a fury that I thought, I just don't want to invest myself in this kind of conspiracy anymore. Like, why is the base story not good enough? The base story that Tyler Robinson was radicalized online, was invested in a community that he felt was being disrespected by conservatives, and then went out to take the most conservative voice that he could at an event where he was capable of doing it because the security was lax. Why do we need to add to that? That's already a really sad modern tale of how divisive the internet can be. I think we're just desensitized to how divisive the internet is, that to us, that's not a radical story. That is a radical story. This person went and killed somebody because he had developed an idea of who this person was and what their goals and ideals were, that he felt it would be best to silence this person before they could talk any longer. That's radical. That's a crazy story. But no, we have to now be telling all kinds of narratives that TPUSA was in on it. And I would say the person leading the charge here is Candace Owens. Now, after I made that last video where I was like, she is not a good source. We do not need to listen to Candace Owens. I stand by that 100%. And at this point, is it possible to say 1,000%?
Good, me too.
She has crashed out so hard that I can't believe that she is even.
I'm with her. And let me tell you all something. I had to give a hearty introduction to this video. You know, you can always skip to where Cherie Denise comes in, or you can watch her video on her channel. But there's a reason for that. One, I have to give commentary on it. And two, because it's imperative for people to understand that you don't have just one or two people saying Candace is wrong here. You have thousands of people saying that Candace is wrong here. And despite her huge platform, there are more than 5 million people that live on Earth in the United States of America. And at the end of the day, Candace Owens has not shown any evidence to support none of the stuff that she's saying. She wanted the Israeli prime minister to issue out the full letter. He did that. Now she wants to figure out when the email was sent with a date and time stamp. Wouldn't you have to get that from his email? From his sent inbox? From the sent folder in his email? Why do you think you're entitled to that? She believes she's entitled to these, answers to her weird ass questions, because who's telling her no? Except people like myself and Cherie Denise and Jay Witt and, the Story Box and Russell and Katie. It can go on and on. People are literally laughing at Candace Owens' stupid conspiracies. And she has no regard of how damaging it is to Erika Kirk. If you want to doubt how the gun got on the roof, I've doubted the same thing. It's still not clear. It was not in the indictment. At what point does the gun show up on the roof? Or the fact that there's no autopsy report that we can read, reference, and sit down and take a look at to figure out, exactly where the entry wound is regarding the neck, to measure it up to the bullet that was used. I mean, I get there are questions about the investigation. And there are some things that are just lacking logic in it. But those things can be expressed in a healthy manner that would help induce dialogue and help point towards some sort of resolution. Not flat out challenging all of Turning Point and blaming any and every person that Candace Owens thinks of. From some governor to Turning Point to the Israeli prime minister. I mean, she's just going from person to person to person to person, throwing spaghetti at the wall. And how is any of that helping? And most of which has no evidence to support it, by the way. Internet sleuths? No, you should be licensed and certified for this very reason. It keeps out the dumb chaos and confusion that she's stirring up with her dumb conspiracies. You all realize she talked about bees and how bees somehow have something to do with this pipeline. And maybe it was done under his chair. And it's just crazy. It's crazy. So yes, we're going to keep calling it out. She's not proving anything with evidence. It's just her word of mouth, and that's it.
Up and alive and able to come again with yet another episode. This is a person who immediately upon the death began to profit off of her quote unquote friend's death with episodes that she was monetizing, doing ad reads for, and promising more content behind a paywall. To me, if I was really invested in figuring out the death of my friend, I can tell you right now that if I was a multimillionaire many times over, and so was my husband, I would not be monetizing the content that I was doing in order to find his killer. I think if I wanted to legitimize my concern, I would make sure I didn't make a damn dime on it. And if I did make any money, I would say at the top of every episode, every single cent that I make on these episodes are going straight to Erika Kirk and her family, going straight to the family of my dear friend. Never once has she raised money for Erika. Never once has she raised money for TPS USA. And it's probably because now she's saying that they're at fault. At the beginning of this, she said the only people who can stop me are my husband and Erika Kirk. Well, now she's basically saying Erika Kirk did it. So I guess Erika's lost her standing to stop Candace. The thing that's wild to me about Candace is that she seems to assume that the entire world owes her something. Yes. I know she has millions of people who watch her, but there's a ton of YouTube channels that have millions of followers. There's zero reason why anybody owes a YouTuber anything. Why does she think that the president's wife of France owes her personal, private DNA or
Right.
evidence that she was born a woman. She's provided pictures and all kinds of things, but it's never good enough. Candace is always like, no. I'll debunk it this way. That's the thing about conspiracy theorists.
And here's the thing, Candace isn't debunking anything because she hasn't provided any DNA evidence to prove otherwise. When it comes to, Brigitte Macron, she hasn't debunked anything. She knows that it will require DNA evidence, which is why she wanted the blood of the first lady. The problem is Candace doesn't understand how court works or how evidence, exhibits being introduced into, through a hearing, through testimony as evidence works. She doesn't understand those things. And her attorneys are doing a piss poor job of explaining to her laws. They're not giving her any legal or wisdom or counsel on anything. So she's going off the handle, talking about things she doesn't understand, and then doubling down on the lie that landed her in court to begin with, but yet expected them to give her an interview. They didn't owe her that. They definitely don't even have to go down the route of producing scientific evidence, which they plan on introducing, but they don't have to because this is a civil procedure. The judge will never order the First Lady of France to give up blood. All because he's trying to appease Candace Owens' ass. The birth announcement, the photos, the things that they have submitted as exhibits would be sufficient. The fact that they are willing to do the scientific evidence goes to show that they're trying to shut her ass down about a lie she told, not her free speech. Free speech is not free speech when it's defamatory and can be proven to be false. Candace Owens. Defamation is provable false statements with a reckless disregard of the truth, no matter how many times they try to tell you that. Just because you don't want to accept evidence that they have sent to you does not mean that they're not telling the truth. You've had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to correct the record, and you refuse to do it. I hope that judge shows you zero sympathy. This is absolutely asinine what Candace Owens is doing.
You can always give them evidence of what they've asked for, but they will always find a way to say that's not true because my narrative is this.
Exactly.
And they're so biased against anything that contradicts their conspiracy. It's hopeless to try with these people. But Candace has switched the story so many times. She started out saying that she thought that it was the Israelis who had done it, saying that Benjamin Netanyahu, when he unwisely came out the day after the assassination to claim Charlie as his own and waved around a letter saying that, this letter is from Charlie and it's basically a love letter from Charlie. Candace said, that's a real letter, but he's not saying that it's true. He just pulled out different lines. And I'm here to tell you that that was a letter that completely tore Benjamin Netanyahu down so that he was no good, yada, yada, yada. And so she was very indignant. That letter's going to come out, and she claimed this as one of her receipts as to how Charlie had turned against Israel. And yet, when the letter is released and authenticated and says exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu suggested, that this was a person who really cared about Israel, so much so that the letter is giving examples to Israel of how they might better the information campaign about their own country. Charlie was very invested in helping Israel to turn the narrative around about itself. Right. Suddenly, Candace is going to try to throw shade, throw doubt. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, that letter, I don't know. Was it an email? Was it a typed copy? I mean, I don't know. Like, that's really going to make a difference as to whether the words are true or not, or whether they came from Charlie.
Yeah, now she's trying to discredit exactly how the letter was sent over to the Israeli prime minister. Once again, no one owes Candace a damn thing. No one owes her the email proof with a date and time stamp. They don't owe her anything over there in Turning Point USA. And it's high time that they start letting her know that. And this would help, when it comes down to it, Candace, because all these videos you're making will be used against you in a court of law because it's called character development. By the time the Macron's attorney is done showing the court and the jury your character and how reckless you are when it comes to anything else that you talk about on your platform, it's going to be open and shut. That's why I keep saying they don't have to give scientific evidence. All you have to do is play her videos of her sitting here doing the same thing in a different situation. She's doing the same exact thing to the Macrons that she's now doing to Turning Point USA and to the legacy of Charlie Kirk and to his wife, Erika Kirk. The same shit. It's the same MO. Let me sit and theorize and assume and repeat it over and over again. And maybe somehow this will become a fact to my 5 million subscribers that are sheeple believing everything I say. That's what we are. Whether I would actually listen to Candace Owens when she will present facts and evidence, but now it's just a bunch of wild hair conspiracy theories that are unsubstantiated. It's as if the word evidence or documentation somehow no longer exists in her vocabulary or in this reality on earth between her and her 5 million subscribers. And all of you all over there aren't just completely brainwashed, but the majority of you are. And that's still a problem because you're tapping out of reality. You can love her. No one is saying to hate her. The problem is that she's not being truthful. And truth and facts and evidence have nothing to do with your feelings, Candace Owens. F your feelings when it comes to facts and evidence. You will find out the hard way when you go to court.
That's been authenticated. People in his inner circle, like, yes, Charlie wrote that letter. I knew that he wrote that letter. That is the letter we sent. But suddenly it's like, I don't know, you guys. This is a person who should have been a lawyer. Because let me tell you, she is peddling that reasonable doubt with every word she says. Because she doesn't prove things, but she's great at planting seeds of doubt in your mind. She will tell you all kinds of things, but she doesn't have any actual sources. Because she has shunned any kind of authentic sources, any kind of actual source that might have been played around with, by the elite. Always seeming to forget that she is the elite. She's married to the son of somebody in the House of Lords. She, by every estimate, would be in the elite circle, yet she's always throwing shade at this group of people, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. But Candace is unable to accept anything from any official source, but she will take anything anybody tells her from the tip line. She will find any rabbit hole on Reddit as a solid source. And look.
And it's not just any old thing. It has to fit her narrative. Because I don't think that everybody that's emailing that tip line are people that are just telling her what she wants to hear. She's only accepting the things that she wants to accept. She's only taking in the tips and considering the tips based on her narrative and her bottom line, whether it's truthful or not. I would hope that there are some people out there with a soul and a conscience that are emailing that tip line and sending her actual factual information, debunking some of the things that she's saying here. I mean, the Israeli prime minister debunked her ass with a 7-page letter and by releasing the entire letter. Not that he had to do it, but he did it because he's more so concerned about, Charlie Kirk's legacy and his support of Israel over anything Candace Owens has to say. But because what she's saying is tarnishing that, it's almost preserving Charlie Kirk's reputation. And when he releases the letter, what does she do? Of course, she doesn't find it good enough because she would have to admit she's wrong. Look how she's treating that governor, the Phil Lyman person. Look how she's treating him. She was asking about his mother. I find it odd that you can't find his mother anywhere. Why do you need to find that man's mother? You know how old it? That's if the mother's alive. If she's alive, she has to be well over 80 years old. Why in the world are you harassing and hounding this woman? Then went to the nephew, didn't know his name, didn't pronounce it correctly. She claims that she reaches out to these people before she goes live. Why are you even mentioning them before you have a chance to talk to them? You mean to tell me you're only going to give someone a day or two to kind of catch up to your nonsense? As if they owe you a conversation. So this is how she bullies them. I'm not gonna go right away. I'm gonna give them some time. I'm gonna reach out to them. If they don't contact me back, I'm gonna go live and say it anyway. And then it will force them to have to respond to me. What the hell? People need to start responding to Candace Owens with a defamation lawsuit. That's what the hell needs to happen at this point.
People could be sending her true things on her tip line. I'm not saying every person who types something in on Reddit is telling you a lie, but what I'm saying is this.
Exactly.
You can't verify this. There's no... At this point, she's positioned herself where she's going to reject official narratives, and she will take anything from anybody that anyone tells her. And so she always gets to be right. Because they're telling me lies over here, but anything I find over here is good. And she can just kind of weasel and pick apart whatever she wants in order for her story to be true. Yep. Case in point. This week, I saw a little bit of footage being peddled around by a lot of different content creators. And it's some footage that this one channel, it's called Milk Bar TV. They're very dedicated to disliking Candace, but they compiled footage from Candace's show in which she's saying one thing, but then showing the reality of it. One of the examples that they showed is that Candace said that she didn't believe the notes that had gone between the murderer and his lover, that these messages didn't sound authentic to her, which was something we all agreed on. The style of the writing was strange. Some of the terms were strange. But one of the words she really wasn't sure about and really insisted that nobody ever uses is the word vehicle. I think I even repeated that, although as I thought about it later, I thought, well, I can think of times when I've said vehicle. Also, Tyler Robinson's dad is in law enforcement, so he may have used the word vehicle. And also, when you consider Tyler's lifestyle, it is not normal according to what normal is usually defined on. This is a person who was living with their gay lover who was in transition and was very invested in a furry community. So I sometimes think that us saying, well, this doesn't sound like the way a typical person would write, I would not categorize his lifestyle as typical. So I think it's interesting. We want him to be typical in this context, but are willing to accept he wasn't typical over here.
Or we can just say, perhaps because we don't know how everyone on earth speaks. We can only assume, based on the people that we interact with, that the average person would probably say car over vehicle. But there are people who do use the word vehicle quite often. I know people who say vehicle a lot. I don't think that's a predicate to determining whether or not we should consider that to be normal dialect. That's just a matter of who you've been exposed to and whom you've had conversation with or who you've heard speak. I hear people say vehicle often. So that to me is typical dialogue. That's how I just think depend on your exposure to whom you're listening to and how you speak and what you surround yourself with.
Anyway, he writes this long thing and says the word vehicle, and she's like, see,
but I understand what she's saying.
I want to ask you right now why anyone would say vehicle when you know that nobody ever uses that word. And that was her big proof that this whole thing was fake. Okay, so footage had come up of him at a traffic stop, which she played for us, in which he was referring to his car as his car and not calling it a vehicle. So she said, see, there we go.
There is 2022 police body cam footage, in case you missed that, of Tyler making a crash report. Take a listen.
Your mom's on her way?
Yeah, she's gonna be a minute. She's got to shuttle over from where she's at to her car and then drive over.
Gotcha.
His mother was going to shuttle over from her car? Interesting.
That is such pathetic evidence. Because even if, in this instance, he happened to call his car, that doesn't mean that he couldn't have said vehicle in another context. This is not all the times he ever had an opportunity to use the word in the note and in the video, right? But it gets so much worse because she plays that part of the video in order for you to hear him say car. So she can say, see, gotcha. Case closed. Cutting off for you the part where he actually uses the word vehicle in its full context. This police cam footage of him at a traffic stop has him saying car in one sentence, but then vehicle in the next. Yet she conveniently doesn't show you that part.
Yeah, I was looking up at the light just before getting there. I saw it shift yellow. And as I get into the intersection, there was a vehicle in the lane.
That is Candace Owens. Okay. Similarly, the letter from Bibi Netanyahu, she said that letter that he sent was true. That's originally what she said. Charlie Kirk really sent him a letter. Look how he's pulling out sentences to prove his point. It looks to me like he's a liar because if he was telling you the truth, then he wouldn't need to just pull out a few sentences. Omission is still lying, she says.
Yeah, she said he was lying by omission, by omitting the remaining parts of the letter. And then, he drops the letter. And now she wants an email from Charlie Kirk's email inbox with the date and time stamp of when the letter was sent. I mean, I would hate that it was sent by, FedEx or something.
Well, we know that, Candace. My question is, do you? And then there's all of these times, again, from Milk Bar TV that show Candace using the word vehicle, even though she claimed that was some weird kind of police lingo that no human ever uses.
Was particularly asking him to determine who owned a white vehicle, and everyone locally had looked at this vehicle, and I can help you just figure out more about this vehicle. And suddenly a president gets shot in a moving vehicle. November 22nd, 1963, JFK was shot. President JFK was shot sitting alongside his wife in a vehicle.
So I'm just telling you right now, this is not a reliable person. Now she's going so far as to say that Tyler Robinson wasn't even on the campus. She has it by a source. A source has told her Tyler wasn't even on the campus. He'd never even been there that day. He didn't know anything about being there that day. And they're all just trying to pin this on him, right? She's got this huge story about that. What I don't understand is, why is it that she's always trying to protect these sources? I can't, for his safety, I can't. But now you are becoming everyone's source. Now you're the one who told me. So whatever force you think is going to come down on this individual who told you this information, why do you think that source of evil is not going to come after you now that you've told a much bigger platform, your millions of people who follow you? Aren't you worried? You're like, oh no, because she's so brave. She just wants you to think she's so brave. She is no threat to anyone because all she's doing is coming up with more trash and more weirdness day after day after day.
In fact, explicitly what it was a Polish underground symbol, a Polish communist underground symbol that nobody would have recognized outside of people who know what it meant. And I just sort of went, okay, that's weird. I kept looking online, and strangely, I'm not kidding, I'm going to show you these messages. I came across what looked to me like a bunch of people talking about...
That voice distortion is awesome. Well done, Cherie Denise. It's funny as hell. That's what you get, Candace. You win.
bees. Literally bees. In a way that the only way I can describe it to you is like they were speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded.
We're speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded.
No one's scared of Candace Owens at this point because she's talking crazy. Now she's trying to say that TPUSA had something to do with Charlie Kirk's murder. The wildness of this is beyond comprehension. I don't know which one it is with her because her latest push towards who did it is TPUSA, even though she will also tell you that 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, he had officially turned his back on the Jews. And then secondly, he was promising that he was going to bring Candace Owens back. And then I guess after that proclamation, the group just rose up in great organized indignation and shot their leader. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense. Ridiculous. Candace Owens is peddling things as hard as she can to pretend that TPUSA really, was out to get Charlie. Yet mysteriously, he was going to try to bring her back. I mean, why didn't we hear about this before? Right? Why are we just now hearing that he wanted to bring you back? Seems to me that if his big plan was to turn his back on Israel and bring you in, basically recreate TPUSA and Candace Owens' current image, it seems like that would have been a conversation he would have had with her recently. Being like, Candace, you've been right about Israel. They really are out to lunch. We really need to bring you back in your energy. And yet the last communication she's been able to show us was something from way back in May. Right? But no current conversation was ever had. But suddenly she knows who told her this. Who told her, oh, he wanted to bring you back 48 hours before his death. That's what he said. And so, again, is it all about Candace?
Yeah, it's some voices in her head. They're starting to speak loud because no one told her that at Turning Point USA. Because then that would mean that you have to, somehow step on the toes of Erika Kirk, his wife, because he was married to her. And they had 2 kids, Candace. Candace, are you jealous? I just have to ask.
It seems like that would have been a conversation he would have had with her recently. Being like, Candace, you've been right about Israel. They really are out to lunch. We really need to bring you back in your energy. And yet the last communication.
And if he had done that, if he would have done that, she would have already produced the text message or the email or any proof or receipt if he had actually put that in writing and said that to her. Don't you think she would have released those text messages by now if Charlie Kirk texted her that? If he had emailed her that, I think she probably would have recorded that phone call if it would have been a phone call, and she would have released the phone call. She released the call or she talked about the call she had with Trump. But yet, if Charlie Kirk called Candace Owens and said, I'm shifting my entire stance on Israel. I'm no longer pro-Israel. Don't you think she would have recorded that call, or if he would have texted or emailed her, don't you think she would have posted up the receipts on that? That would have been the first thing she would have done because that's her big aha moment.
She's been able to show us was something from way back in May, right? But no current conversation was ever had. But suddenly she knows who told her this. Who told her, oh, he wanted to bring you back 48 hours before his death. That's what he said. And so, again, is it all about Candace? Because it's almost like she's saying he was killed for wanting me. I was the reason why they finally had to take him out. Candace, why don't you go take care of those 4 kids you have? Okay? Why don't you go make your husband a sandwich since you say you're real big on that?
Oh, well done. Well said. You know what? That was spot on. Shout out to Cherie Denise, you all. I appreciate her feedback on this and her commentary because it's spot on. And this is someone who was one of those, diehard supporters. She's not even trying to attack Candace Owens, even in this video. Neither am I. I'm just sick of Candace Owens not proving anything that she says with receipts. And there are some consequences that's going to come her way. Candace Owens does not realize how her videos will be used against her in the court of law to show her character. So if you're willing to lie about someone's gender when you can't prove scientifically that they were born a man, to me, in my mind, you're willing to lie about anything else. I just didn't think she would lie about anything around the death of her best friend and brother that she loves so much that she, obsesses over having a reunion with. And then go so far as to basically attack the executive's attorney point, which would include his wife as the CEO. You can't say executives and then you don't actually say excluding Erika Kirk. With the exception of Erika Kirk, I'm challenging the remaining executives. And don't think Erika Kirk would not defend the executives there because that's now her company. So she's not going to allow Candace Owens to cause her to do the biggest betrayal of a lifetime, and she leaves her own executives out there high and dry. But why put Erika Kirk in that predicament? Why put her in that situation? So shout out to Cherie. Hopefully I can get her on the show. I have sent her a comment and would love for her to reach out to me. I don't know how to reach out to her at all, but I would love for her to reach out to me and do an interview and have her on here in the Lady Luck Club. I mean, her insight, and I think what really, got my attention was her willingness to apologize to her audience and, to admit I went down that rabbit hole and I should not have done that, because now look at the damage that it's causing. And at least somebody's recognizing it. So, that would be something that I would love to, kind of show on the, in the Lady Luck Club. There are people who can come out of that rabbit hole of conspiracies and just stick to facts and evidence and documentation and proof, receipts, however you want to term it. You don't have to be conspiratorial, to be right or even to question anything. It just needs to be logical, factual, and make sense. That's it. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure you check the description of the video for Dr. Squatch products, Dr. Squatch soap, deodorant, toiletries, all of the amenities that you will need to have your family members smelling good and feeling clean and fresh. Dr. Squatch soap products, whether you get a bar or a bundle, are available and attached and tagged in the description of the video. I do receive a commission on the sales, but you have to purchase the products that are tagged. So that goes towards the support of the channel. And if you would like to support the channel even further, Lady Luck Club LLC is the Cash App tag. And of course, Zelle, LadyLuckClubLLC at yahoo.com. Thank you so much. And until the next one, Lady Luck Club out.